Everyone, I'm here again to continue my report about the influence of Roman Catholic. So, in the Philippines, the society of the Philippines, leadership of religion leaders are the most influenced individuals in our community. Why? Because here in the Philippines, religions has a big impact to an individual. So, again, the war on drugs in the Philippines is also problematized the role of the church in politics. So, the war on drugs is a big problem to the church and and also the politicians is also the problem. Po sabi. Um, and a religious leader is a problem to a politician. Why? Because church are against the war on drugs, because the humanity or the human rights are doesn't follow. So church are influence people in the Philippines to go them to against the war on drugs. So this approach this approach is inspired by Francisco's critical work on official church document that assert in Christian identity of the Filipino nation. To this end, we gathered all references to drugs and analyzed their content. So next slide. These references to illegal drugs appearance in 1971. From that time to the present, we were able to collect a total of 304 pastoral statements. So there are so many pastoral statements that related to the war on drugs or the illegal drugs. And that statement is ensuring the discussion puts forward themes we have identified over time. Then relate contemporary development by relying news articles about drugs. So they ensure that every topic that they discuss, the 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 individuals or the society will benefit it. Not only not only they benefit it, but also to secure every person in the society, and strictly they follow the rules. But the war on drugs um, against the law of human rights. So next slide. Pope John Paul II, the pro-life Pope. So Carol Joseph Wojtyla, or known as Pope John Paul II, was born in May 18, 1920 in Vatican, Poland. Pope John Paul II was the head of the Catholic Church and the sovereign of the Vatican City-State from 1778 until his death in 2005. He was died in April 2, 2005 at Apostolic Palace in Vatican City. So next slide. So next slide is Pope's pro-life challenge, or respect all life, oppose death. So death penalty. So Vatican City, Pope Francis' recent statement that death penalty is incompatible with the gospel of focus less on a government rule protecting in people and more the need to defend the sacredness of dignity every human life. So that statement focus but they value the every person's life, because death is not enough reason to death death is not a solution to solve crime, or not a solution to reduce crime, because every individual deserves second chance, because Lord Jesus Christ gave us second chance to he sacrificed his own self to us to be saved. So at least from the time of Blaise Paul the Sixth in the 1960s, the Catholic Church has been increasingly critical to the to the use of capital punishment, even while acknowledging centuries of church teaching that a state has right to punish offenders, including with the death penalty. So Blaise Paul the Sixth in 1960 gives statement that we need to study the punishment that we want to give to individuals that commit crime, because I mean we need to sure that 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 person is is um, is really we need to sure that that person is really a threat to our society, and including the death penalty. He he want to teach us what is what what is want to do that that punishment. So next slide. Pause. So Pope John Paul II made a letter printed Evangelium Vitae, or the Gospel of God, that wrote of his alarm and the extraordinary increase and gravity of threats to the life of individuals and peoples, but said one sign of hope was the increasing of opposition around the world to capital punishment. So his my own opinion about that, he want to know, he want to give say, opinion about that our government need to focus that individuals really deserve that punishment, because he says that every individuals are good and deserve a second chance. So next slide. Tapos na. So these slides represent that our church, or Pope John Paul II, is against the death penalty, because because modern society in fact has the means to effectively suppressing crime by rendering criminals harmless without definitively denying them the chance to reform. So if death penalty occurred, that we that individuals that so if death penalty occurred, our government removed the opportunity the opportunity of the offender to change his act or his behavior. We remove his rights as a human. And 2 years later, Pope John Paul had criticism of Catholic Church revised the strengthening of its anti-death penalty posture. So, but that year, Pope John Paul strongly against the death penalty. He want to reform that kind of punishment, because every individuals need because every individuals are also humans. They need understanding. They need care for them to change, or they need guide for them to change to be a good one, in not only in that institution but in the society itself. So this slide, next slide mo sabar ka na mo. So this slide, Saint John Paul, then he want to change the capital punishment, which is death penalty, because it says that that penalty contradict both the Bible and the traditional position of the Catholic Church, because that punishment against the Bible, because only Jesus Christ had right to 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 finish a life, or to finish a human life. And a professor named Edward Fisher, a philosophy at California's Pasadena City College, and an author of By Man Shall His Blood Be Shed. So also against the death penalty debate about the death penalty. So next slide. Pusa. And on October 15, Fisher said that if Pope Francis saying that capital punishment is also strictly immoral, so I mean immoral, he should be effectively saying, whether consciously or unconsciously, that previous popes, father, and doctors of the church are even divinely inspired scripture are in error. So this, he says that the previous popes before Pope Francis their decisions are error, because Pope Francis fight the anti-death penalty, but Jesuit Father John and Jesuit Father John Dacock, a professor of moral theology and theologian and apostolic penitentiary, a Vatican court, said that the church always insisted there were limits to the condition under which state could legitimately impose the death penalty. So Jesuit insists that there is a limitation about, and Saint John Paul, he said that emphasize those limits are point of saying that now it's easier to keep a murderer in jail for life. So he said that that capital punishment are not necessary condition to execute or to kill or to kill individuals that are that do criminal things. So next slide. So Catholic teachings offers unique perspective of crime and punishment. So every individual seek a justice to comfort and support the victims and their families, but be sure that punishment is acknowledging the God-given dignity of every human life. So this says that every punishment is not against the Bible or not against the God's will. That doesn't harm any individuals being in process of on his punishment, or the punishment of a criminal, and God that must be respected and defended from conception until natural death. And next slide. In this and in these slides explains the gospel of life. So Pope John Paul challenged followers of Christ to be unconditionally pro-life. So it explains that we need to value the life of every individual, because each life has right, because every humans in this world have purpose to do or have purpose to this society. And in this case, death penalty, if this is if this occur, um, we remove the individual rights or opportunity to change and opportunity to do their their to do their purpose in this earth or in this world. So next slide. So in 2005, the Catholic bishops of the United States issued a culture of life and the penalty of death. Um, and in this document, the bishop stated that gift of life must be respected and protected. So he says that every human being had rights and had rights to secure or to protect, and that every life is a precious gift of God. See Genesis 2 to 7, verse 21 to 23, that we are all created in God's image and redeemed by Jesus Christ, who himself was crucified. They acknowledge that this they acknowledge that sentence such as life in prison without parole. That says that even the person or that prison without parole, at least he served his punishment without death. Next slide, please. So this slide, the new evangelization calls for the followers of Christ who are unconditionally pro-life, who will proclaim, celebrate, and serve gospels of life in every situation. A sign of hope is the increasing recognition that dignity of human life must never be taken away. Even in the case of someone who has done great evil, modern society has the means of protecting itself without definitively denying criminals the chance to reform. I renew the appeal I made recently at Christmas for consciousness to end the death penalty, which is both cruel and unnecessary. Pope John Paul II. And all of and my opinion of that, the death penalty is not the reason, or not enough reason to not enough reason to kill or to punish individuals, because every individual has chance to change or to reform. Next slide. So Pope John Paul says that the First and Second World War. So Pope John Paul, in the First and Second World War, that is a full of blood, or that century is a death century. So he advises that every government to reform the punishment, the capital punishment, which is death penalty, because there are so many lives, millions of lives are being executed during that century. So that is not enough. That is not, and I mean, Pope John Paul wants to end the blood in that century. So that so he wants to end the death. Next slide. So by portraying capital punishment in a purely negative light as a sentence only to be executed when unavoidable. So Pope John Paul II evangelized for life in fidelity to the gospel. He faced a dilemma of how to reconcile the history of the implication of capital punishment in Christian society with the historic Christian witnesses against death, and solve it with a concise stroke. So Pope John Paul, he want to change that punishment, not only to for this generation, but also to to the benefit of our or of his future generation. So next slide. Pause. So in particular, many Catholics. So in part, sorry for the inconvenience. So in particular, many Catholics who had been otherwise championed John Paul II start-word defense of orthodoxy. Others have questioned the fidelity and soundness of his teaching. So Pope John Paul teach us the government not be, he says that death is not a solution to reduce crime or to punish individual of death. So next slide. So Walnut Street Jail. Walnut. So what is Walnut Street Jail? Why does jail created? When and where it is located and created? What are the contribution of this jail? And what is the purpose of this jail? And we will all tackle about that in the next slide. So next slide please. So the Walnut Street Prison was a city jail and the house in Philadelphia from 1773 to 1838. Legislation calling for establishment of the jail was passed in 1773. So and to relieve overcrowding in the High Street Jail. So the first prisoners were admitted in 1776. It was located at 6th and Walnut Street when it acquired the original name Walnut Street Jail. So the purpose of this jail is to reduce the overcrowding of the high street jails, and it was officially active and in 1776. So the penitentiary house was built in 1790. It is considered to be the first in the United States, and it was built to use individual cells and work details. The word means the words penitentiary came from the Pennsylvania belief and penitence and self-examination as a means of salvation. So the purpose is in the penitentiary house is to suffer the punishment that being given to you as a criminal or the criminal offender. So this was made anew and permanent from the combating crime through the practice of solitary containment, which was later adopted. Solitary confinement rather, which was later adopted in the Eastern State Penitentiary. So this made to battle or to combating crime, and this served as permanent home to the criminals that are being convicted. So next slide. So that's all for this topic, for this report. Will we continue? And I mean that's all for today. We will continue to the next video.